Okay, so today we're going to talk about managing your home utilities. That would be your gas, electric, and water service. And there are times when you may need to shut those utilities off. And there are other times when you want to leave those utilities on. And we're going to be talking more in depth about that. First utility we're going to talk about is your natural gas. Natural gas comes into your house or your dwelling, and it usually operates some of your appliances. It may operate your furnace, it may operate your water heater, it may operate your gas range stove top. Gas is a substance that ordinarily is very safe when it's contained in a pipe and it goes to those appliances. But if you have an issue with a gas leak or a broken pipe, gas can be a problem. How will you know if you have an issue with your natural gas? You'll know because you'll be able to smell it. Natural gas typically is odorless, but your utility adds a scent to it, an odor to it, to make it so that you can smell it and you'll know when you have any kind of a leak. So smelling for natural gas leak is the best way to know that you've got a problem with natural gas. You may also possibly hear it, or you may actually see a broken pipe and smell it, and then you'll know you actually have a leak and a problem. You want to shut off your gas if you have a leak. And the way to do that is to go to your gas meter. But first, before you actually turn off the gas, I'm going to suggest that if you have a leak in your house, you ventilate the house. That means open all the doors and windows. The reason you do that is to lessen the concentration of gas and the hopes that you will eliminate the possibility of an explosion or a fire. Once you ventilate, you want to go outside, locate your gas meter. There's a picture of that in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And there's a pipe that will be coming out of the ground. That pipe is the pipe that brings the gas into your house, but first through the meter. On the pipe, you'll find a valve, as depicted in that picture in the right corner. It should be just above where the pipe comes out of the ground. And you put a wrench on that valve and you turn it 1/4 turn, and that will shut off the gas. You also will need to call PG&E because they'll want to come out and inspect and verify that the gas is shut off. And if you've had a leak in your house, it's a good idea to call 911 and to get a fire response to your house, because there is always the possibility of a fire or explosion if you have a gas leak. And it would be nice to have the fire department show up and be on scene and be available if necessary. There's another picture of the gas valve on a gas meter on the right-hand side picture there with the little red circle around it. That's the valve where you want to put your wrench and you want to turn it 1/4 turn to turn it off. A lot of people buy tools or instruments that they can use to shut off their gas, and they keep them in a handy location close by so that they can reach them in a hurry, or they know where to find them if they need to. Some people will actually hang it on the gas meter. Some will hang it on a little hook like depicted in that other picture. But you need to do this ahead of time. You can't be looking for that wrench or trying to find that turn-off tool when you actually have a gas leak. It's going to be real critical to have that tool available to you ahead of time so that you can know right where it is and go right to the valve and shut the gas down. So the only time you're really going to want to shut your gas off again is if you have a leak and you can smell the natural gas and you want to shut the gas off to your house. The other thing you should try and do ahead of time is you should try and budge the valve a little bit. You should put a wrench on that valve and see if you can move it just a little bit. You don't want to turn it that 1/4 turn because that will shut off your gas. and that will require PG&E coming to your house to turn the gas back on and make sure all your pilot lights to your appliances are lit. But you can put a wrench on that valve and turn it a little bit, maybe 1/8 of a turn, just enough to know that it moves. And the reason we ask you to try that is some gas valves that haven't been touched for years and years become kind of frozen, and they're really difficult to move. So it'd be nice to know ahead of time that you can budge yours. If you can't move it, you can't cause it to move a little bit, then you should call PG&E and have one of their service technicians come out, and they will lubricate it and move it so that you know it works and you can shut it down in an emergency. Now we're going to move on to your electric service. Electrical comes into your house either underground or through some wires overhead. It will come to your house, and it will usually show up in an outside circuit breaker panel, like the one depicted on the right. It says it's your main outside circuit breaker panel. This is a picture of my outside circuit breaker panel on my house. It's right next to the meter that meters how much electricity I use. You lift that little door up and it exposes the breaker switches. Ordinarily, a house will have one breaker, one big breaker switch. Mine has two because I have a main breaker switch that goes to the house, and I have a separate main breaker switch that goes to my outdoor air conditioning unit. But those are the switches that will control the electricity that comes into your house. The electricity goes from that main outside circuit breaker panel to a smaller panel inside. It may be in your garage, it may be inside your house in a closet or a utility closet, and it's called the sub-panel circuit breaker. That controls the individual circuits that serve the inside of your house. The circuits that go to your kitchen, the circuit that goes to your bathrooms, the circuit that goes to your bedrooms are all controlled in that panel. So you can shut down an individual circuit if you need to, or if you're not sure which circuit you want to shut down, you can go to the main circuit and shut it off. Now, why would you want to turn off your electricity? Well, if you have a problem with arcing wires, or maybe you have smoke coming from an outlet, or you have the smell of burning electrical wires in your house, it's kind of an acrid smell of the insulation burning, then you want to shut down your electricity and call an electrician to come check and find out why you are having this short or the arcing on the wires. So that's how you go and shut down your electricity. You can either do it at the main circuit panel outside, or if you're certain which circuit it is that's giving you a problem, you can find your sub-panel inside and shut down that individual circuit. Those circuits in the sub-panel should be labeled as to what part of the house or what circuit they control. Water lines, water service. Most of our houses get our water service from a line connected in the street. And in most houses, it goes to a water control box, like the one you see on the left-hand side there. It's a concrete box that has a water label on the top of it, and it controls the pipe that comes in from the street to your house. You can lift that concrete lid off. I use a big screwdriver to lift mine off. And once inside the box, you will find, again, another valve, a valve that you can control with a wrench, and you can turn it a quarter turn and shut the water off to your house. Why would you want to turn the water off to your house? Well, if you have a main water leak inside and you can't control it, you can't shut it down inside the house somehow, then you've got to go out to that box, lift off the lid, get a wrench, and turn it off that way. Some houses have a separate water shutoff valve right next to the house. I have that at my house, and you can see that in the far picture on the far right of your screen. It's called a ball valve. It's got a little handle. The handle in that picture is in the down position right now, which means it's open. But if I grab that little handle and I pivot it up a quarter turn, I can shut the water off there also. So that's a second place that I could turn the water off coming into my house. Again, when would you shut the water off? It's when you have a water leak, a broken pipe, a broken faucet, and you can't shut it off inside the house with a shutoff valve. Many of your faucets in the house have shutoff valves, usually under the sink. Your washer will have a shutoff valve that's exposed that you can get to. But sometimes you'll get a broken pipe that you just can't turn the water off to, and then you're going to have to resort to either going to the street box valve, or if you have a valve shut off closer to your house, you can utilize that as well. So that pretty much sums up our control of utilities. The answer is yes, you can control the utilities that come to your house, and you should. If there's a need to shut down your gas, if you have a gas leak, or shut off your electricity, if you have an arcing plug or arcing circuit or burning wires, or if you have a water leak that goes on in your house that you can't shut off any other way, then you should certainly shut it off with a valve outside. Those are the situations that you may need to take control of that utility and shut it down, and then call the appropriate party to come service it. If it's gas, it'll be PG&E. If it's electric, if it's inside your house, you're going to need to call an electrician. And if it's water, again, you're going to have to take control and shut down the water and call a plumber. So I hope that answers any questions you might have about it, but we'll stick around and answer any questions that you have in the chat box. So Serenity, can you look in the chat box and see if we have any questions?
Yeah, a couple people have said thank you. That was very helpful. And one person had a question earlier, which I believe you answered, but the question was, I have a breaker box inside my house and a box outside. Which one do I flip off?
So that the answer to that question is the breaker box in your house is that sub panel I talked about, the one probably that controls the individual circuits. So if you can identify which circuit it is that you want to shut down, you can turn it off in that sub panel. If you're not sure which circuit you want to shut down, then you can always go to the panel on the outside of your house and shut off everything.
Great, thank you. And here's another question. What do you mean by arcing wires in the house? Would that be when a plug sparks?
If a plug sparks when you're pulling the plug out of a wall socket or an outlet, that's normal sometimes for it to spark when you remove it. But if it continues to spark after you've pulled the plug from the outlet, or you see sparking or arcing going on inside the wall by where the outlet is, or you see smoke coming out from where the outlet is, or you smell the smell of hot burning wires, which is that kind of acrid smell that you'll smell when things are a hot electric smell, that's when you want to shut down that circuit. And like I said, if you can't locate it in the sub panel box, then go to the main panel box and shut it down. And then your next call should be to an electrician.
Okay, and I have another question here. It says, I remember in 1989 earthquake, neighbors going around and turning off all gas to homes. Is this a good idea still, or was it then?
Well, we encourage people to only shut their gas off if they know they have a leak or they think they have a leak. And the reason behind that is in a big earthquake, if everybody shuts their gas down, it will take weeks, maybe months for PG&E to get back around to relight people's pilot lights and turn the gas back on. So we really caution you about only shutting your gas down if you suspect or smell that you have some kind of leak going on.
Okay, and on that note, someone said, I've lost my tool to shut off the gas. Could I buy a new one and where?
So yes, you can. Every hardware store sells them. Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace. I've even seen them at Walmart. So the tools are available. If you buy a tool to shut off your gas, be sure and bring it home and make sure it fits, that it's the right tool, the right size, and then locate it in a strategic place where it's close by to that meter or that valve. So in an emergency, you don't go fumbling trying to find it because you know right where it is. I would also say on that point, it'd be a good idea for everybody that's taken this lunch and learn today to take a few minutes, go outside, locate where your gas meter is, identify where that valve is. Also locate where your electrical panel is outside. Where is it located? Open the door, the little metal door on it. Make sure you can see inside and see where the switches are. And then identify where that water shutoff valve is. Is it in that box near the street? Or do you have a separate water valve near your house or up next to your house where the water pipe actually comes inside? Do that ahead of time so you know in your mind that you've already identified those spots if you have to go there.
Okay, and there's another question. What is the new red dome that was added to my gas meter?
That's a really good question. I'm glad that was asked. That's an earthquake shutoff valve, and it's required on most building code plans for new structures, or if you're going to add on to your house, it's a requirement. And it will be, it's a valve, it's a separate valve that's installed after your main shutoff valve, but before the gas actually goes through the meter. And it's usually a ball type valve. So if we have a big earthquake, there's a little ball inside that red cap, and it will fall and block the passage of gas and shut off the gas. And that's the purpose behind it. It's an earthquake shutoff valve that will automatically close off your gas if it senses a earthquake that's large enough to displace it.
Okay, and there's another person who mentioned that they have the wrenches hanging on the fence next to their meters, and they share this location with their neighbors. If there's a big earthquake and I'm not home, but they are, I want them to shut down my meters as well as theirs.
Great idea. You know, preparedness doesn't just involve you, it involves your neighborhood and your neighbors all working together as a team to watch out for each other. Because like he said, or that person said, they may not be home when the big earthquake happens and they may need their neighbor to come around and help them. So that's a great idea.
And Brian, we actually have one more question about the red dome. It says, if I have the red dome, does that mean I don't need to learn to turn off the gas?
No, you should still learn how to shut off the gas, because if you have a broken gas pipe in your house, maybe due to an accident, something fell over or broke, you're still going to need to shut the gas off. That dome is only going to shut your gas off if it gets a good shake from an earthquake. The other thing to mention too about gas is if you have a fire in your house for some reason and the fire department comes to put out the fire, one of the first things they're going to do is shut down your gas, because they don't want, that's an extra risk and hazard that they may have to deal with, and they don't want to deal with it. So it's real easy to run right over to your gas meter and shut it off. Then they can put the fire out, and they're not worried about dealing with a gas leak or a fire from the gas. So it's good to know how to shut off your gas, even if you don't have an earthquake. There may be another occasion where you need to turn it off.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian. I think we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for this very helpful presentation. And again, if you would like to register for next week's on Defensible Space, you can go to that library event link that was posted in the chat. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Hope to see you at future Lunch and Learns.